And so now I would like to introduce to you all our great list of panelists, beginning with Assemblywoman Fernandez. Assemblywoman Fernandez, during her time in the 80th Assembly District, Natalia has led numerous projects and initiatives. Under her direction, the Assembly Office provided internships and numerous volunteer opportunities to high school and college students, organized events and healthcare services for seniors, and planned numerous community events. Public service became Natalia's passion and provided the fulfillment she was seeking in her career. In early 2017, Natalia accepted the position of a lifetime, joining the executive chamber at the highest level of state government as the Bronx Regional Representative for Governor Andrew Cuomo. We also have Assemblywoman Septimo. Amanda Septimo is a lifelong Bronx resident with a long, rich history of service to the community. Her spirit of activism and community leadership began in her adolescence and can be traced through the entirety of her career. At just 12 years old, Amanda became aware of the prevailing social, economic, and environmental injustices within our community and soon began to organize around these causes throughout the South Bronx. She's also recently elected to the 84th District. Flore Baptiste. Flore Baptiste is a Brooklyn community coordinator for the mayor's office to end domestic and gender-based violence, where she has worked on the outreach team for the last 6 years. Through her role, she raises awareness about resources for victims and survivors of gender-based violence in the communities across New York City, using her language skills to conduct outreach in Haitian Creole, French, English, and Spanish. Ms. Heidi Peña. Heidi Peña is a Queens community educator for the Early Relationship Abuse Prevention Program with STEPS to end family violence at Rising Ground, a holistic program of services for victims of gender-based violence with a focus on prevention, intervention, and policy advocacy. The Early Relationship Abuse Prevention Program at STEPS provides free and interactive prevention education to 64 DOE public middle schools serving 6th through 8th grade around New York City. Ms. Nelsie Rodriguez. Nelsie is the program manager for the Violence Intervention and Treatment Program at Wyckoff Heights Medical Center. Ms. Nelsie has worked in the field of sexual health prior to the role of manager and successfully connected survivors of sexual assault to medical intervention to prevent HIV infection. Ms. Adrienne Junta. 88 Adrienne Junta is the chief of the Domestic Violence Bureau Special Victims Division at the Office of the Bronx District Attorney. 88 Junta began her career as a Bronx prosecutor in 2001. Throughout her career, she has investigated and prosecuted crimes, including intimate partner homicides, child fatalities, sexual assaults, and all crimes of domestic violence, including strangulations and assaults. Ms. Lindsay Curtis. Lindsay Curtis has been committed to anti-violence work in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania since 2016. She has served in a variety of capacities, forum hotline work, advocacy, prevention education, and much more. Currently working in New York City and is focused on prevention work, operating as the training, outreach, and education supervisor for the Mount Sinai Sexual Assault and Violence Intervention Program. Ms. Cristina Fragola. Ms. Fragola has been the director of the Bronx District Attorney's Crime Victims Assistance Unit since January 2020. Prior to that, she was the deputy director of CVAU for 7.5 years. In the past 4 years, Ms. Fragola has also played an integral role in the coordination of the Complex Homicide Program, which provides advocacy and therapy services solely to homicide survivors and their family members. What a great list of panelists we have. And so now I would like to take this opportunity to direct some questions. Is Assemblywoman Septimo in?
Yet.
Not yet? Okay, no problem. So I would like to address our first question to Ms. Heidi Peña. Heidi, thank you so much again for joining us. And so one of the questions that were asked was, how can one figure out situations that may signal a red flag? And how can one seek services and yet stay safe while the perpetrator is in the house?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. And I'm really grateful to be able to share my perspective of working in the prevention of abusive relationships and in the promotion of healthy relationships with youth. So one of the things that you can do is when the perpetrator is in the house, creating spaces of safety and informing your youth, right, of what healthy relationships and what abusive relationships look like. Now, this is a little bit out of my reach because I mostly work with youth. As I mentioned, I work with 6th to 8th graders. So like I said, informing yourself about what it is that is happening, ways in which we can protect our youth, and using plain language in regards to the ways that we speak to young folks. As adults, we often try to protect or shield young people. However, talking openly and directly to them is actually proven to be the best protective measure for younger folks. So don't leave any room for misinterpretation or gray areas for when it comes to abuse. You have to make sure that you're familiarizing yourself with the different types of abuse and examples to be clear with the young people in your life when abuse is happening, and how to develop safety plans. So become a team member with your young person and develop safety plans together. Listen and affirm to them when they speak about their experiences with abuse. Don't blame or accuse or question, but rather reinforce them with affirmation and develop a team-based approach to dealing with abuse so that you are you're creating power together.
Thank you so much. You made a great point, and now I want to just direct this next question to ADA Adrian Junta. Many women don't call the police because they are unaware of the legal process. Can you walk us through that?
Hello, thank you for having me. Absolutely. So Ms. Hannah discussed the two options that often victims of domestic violence pursue. Sometimes they might decide to call 911, or other times they might decide to call the DV hotline. Or of course, there are times when maybe it's just not right for you and you don't decide to do anything at that point. So I, as a prosecutor at the Bronx DA's office, the chief of domestic violence, we handle all intimate partner crimes. Any crimes that happen between intimate partners come to the Domestic Violence Bureau. And what happens when 911 is called is that there's NYPD response. So officers show up to the home where 911 is called from, or sometimes maybe a concerned neighbor or family member might call. And that's how the DA's office gets involved. After an arrest is made, or if an investigation is opened up, when a complaint is made to 911, that's how the DA's office becomes involved. So what I think is something that a lot of the community may not realize is that every precinct has a DV unit. There are specially trained domestic violence officers that respond. Sometimes they respond to a 911 call, but more often than not, they are significant in doing follow-up and home visits. After 911 is called, officers will respond. If the perpetrator is on the scene, an arrest will be made. New York is a mandatory arrest state. And so if there is a complaint of domestic violence, there will be an arrest made. And that's how the case then comes to the DA's office, where we, as the specially trained prosecutors in the DV unit, we have a conversation with the police officer and with the victim, and we discuss next steps. oftentimes a victim might not be ready to go forward. Even if they call the police, they might not want to pursue criminal charges, and we completely understand that. But what's most important for the community to recognize is that as the prosecutors, our goal, our success and our motive is not in just getting jail time or getting convictions. The important step for the DA's office is to have contact with the victims and their family to put them in touch with services. And you being part of the process, getting engaged with NYPD and having a conversation with the DA's office. I think I froze for a second. I think you can hear me.
No, you're good.
Okay. Having a conversation with the DA's office will get that ball rolling. So just know that we are very interested in hearing from the victim and their perspective. What is it that you want? Do you want a full order of protection? Do you want us to link you up with services, which Christina Fragola is here from the office. I'll let her handle that part of it. Are there concerns that you have because the offender maybe becomes abusive when he or she's intoxicated? Or are there mental health concerns? And maybe us getting involved in the process is a step towards remedying that. So our goal is not necessarily, oh, he did this to you, he has to go to jail. That's not the goal. The goal is to get you help and to get the offender help. The motto of the district attorney's office is to pursue justice with integrity. So when you hear NYPD is involved or the DA's office is involved, just please know that it's not, the end goal is not just prosecution. It's to bring justice to the families and to bring closure and hopefully maybe to put everybody in a better place and get them the services that they need.
Thank you so much, ADA Junta. I love that you spoke about the steps and the support that the district attorney office provides. So with that being said, I want to direct the next question to Ms. Christina Fragola. Christina, what support is provided to the victim by the DA advocacy program?
Again, thank you for having us here. And I just want to say before I start, thank you for starting off this presentation with a song. It was a real refreshing way to begin. Like, it just started, and I feel like 2021, we've got a lot of hope, and things are going to change. And it was just a great way to start it, and it really, really made me feel good. So thank you. So yeah, our office, we have the crime victims unit, and we're located right in the DA's office. We have 4 locations, but now due to COVID, we're all working remotely. So I won't even tell the locations, but our main office is in the 198 East 161st Street. And since I've been working on the crime victims unit since 2012, our focus is to get specialized when working with crime victims. So we have a lot of specialized advocates that work with all the different crime types, even though we work with all the crime types. So when it comes to domestic violence, we have a domestic violence advocate who only gets DV cases. We have a strangulation advocate from a grant where she only works with strangulation victims. And then we have a whole program, which my colleague is here to tell you about, that just deals with post-arraignment and providing information to DV victims when an arrest has been made. And then we have sexual assault advocates who specialize in sexual assault. And I have one advocate here just to briefly tell you about this, working with DV victims who are also sexually assaulted. So the point of this is that we really do want to acknowledge that there's no cookie cutter approach to working with DV victims. And like Adrian said, we get the ADAs refer to us whether there's an arrest or not at this point. So lately we've been getting many referrals to our advocates with victims who have called 911 and they do not want to proceed, and our office has made the decision not to prosecute for whatever reason, but we're still reaching those victims as well. So we're trying not to miss any victim that could need our help. And we get a lot of calls on our main number, which I'll type in the chat, where we don't even know why they're calling, but we call every single client that leaves us a message. And if it's no matter what kind of a crime it is, we follow up with that. I did want you to learn a little bit more about our early victim engagement program. So I'm going to have Adriana Barona just tell you a little bit about that program briefly and how we try to reach every single DV victim after an arrest.
Hi, so I'm Adriana Barona. I'm the supervisor for early victim engagement, which stands for, which is called EVE, but the acronym is EVE, but it's early victim engagement. We're a team of 3 people that reach out to intimate partner DV victims, most of the time within 24 hours of an arraignment. We find that most victims, as you can imagine, are scared, nervous, apprehensive right after an arrest, and are often home wondering what happened to that defendant in court when they face the judge. So EVE was designed to be one of the first contacts from the DA's office to speak with the victim. And we do that for multiple reasons. First, obviously, is to give them the arraignment status of the defendant that the victim needs to know, like if he or she is still in custody, or if that defendant was ROR'd, meaning released on his own or her own recognizance. If bail was issued, we link them up to, we help them register to VineLink, which will help them get notified after the defendant is released from custody. We let them know if a limited or a full order of protection was issued, if their children are on that order, if there is an access order on the order of protection, which means that the judge granted permission for the defendant to gather their belongings at the home, as long as that person is escorted by NYPD. And as you can imagine, it's so hard for a victim not to know these things, and that a defendant and the police knock on the door, and that victim thinks that this defendant is still in custody, and there they are at the door with a police officer asking to get their stuff from the home, when the children might still be scared, when the victim might be going through injuries. So we are that contact, we are that bridge to get this victim the information they need. Another thing that we tell them is the ADA's contact information. One thing about the DA's office is that's, I think, different from the other boroughs, is that the ADAs reach out to the victim almost immediately. The EVE programs in other boroughs, EVE is the first contact even before the ADAs, but in the DA's office, the ADAs actually reach out first, and then EVE consequently calls them hours later. We let them know when the next court date is. We let them know if the defendant was put on supervised release. All of these things are important for the victim to know. It's almost like parallel justice. So when a defendant is arrested, they're given their rights, but victims aren't given their rights. So we pride ourselves in letting the victim know what their rights are, making them aware of what's happening, getting them the information to the ADA who is assigned to the case so that they can actually talk to them about what they want. Like what Adrian said, sometimes victims don't want incarceration. Sometimes they want a batterers program, a mental health program. And sometimes they talk to us because we are pretty much social workers, or we're in that field, and they tell us things that they won't necessarily tell an ADA. So another benefit to EVE is we make an immediate safety assessment. So we get them linked to agencies that can help them change their locks. We get them linked up to advocates who can help them with OVS in case they lost something, or essential property was damaged, like hearing aids, eyeglasses, things that they need right away. We discuss DV shelters and the process of housing transfers. What else do we do? We talk about long-term services. So if a victim needs long-term services, we connect with our own CVAU advocates and therapists. If they need outside agencies like Safe Horizon, FJC services, we connect with them too. We partner with all those agencies. And then we follow up 2 times after the initial call. So they hear from us quite often, actually before they are transferred to either to our own CVAU program or to other agencies. And before I end, I just wanted to give statistically from October 1st to December 31st of 2020, we reached out to over 800 victims.
Wow.
So DV is prevalent in the Bronx, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to supervise Eve so that we can get this information and support to the victims that are home and are scared and worried and want to hear from someone. So yeah, so that's Eve. All right, so I'll give it back to Christina.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barona and Ms. Fragola, for informing us with such great tips and the collective reports that you've all been collecting during the COVID-19 and the pandemic, which reminds me of a question that was raised, and I would like to address this question to Ms. Baptiste. Ms. Baptiste, what percentage of domestic violence cases were received by the city during COVID-19 versus last year's report? And what does the city plan to address in this disparity?
So, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So what we've been doing since March of last year is that we've been providing the same type of services, except that we are providing them online, right? I mean, over the phone right now. The services we provide, they are from the family justice centers, and where the clients can basically call and they get an assessment done. After that, once we decide that they qualify for services, they get assigned a case manager, and that person can receive services like legal services, counseling, shelter assistance, self-sufficiency courses. We have services, we can help them apply for public assistance, and all the services we provide are free. As far as statistics go, we have our stats posted online. They are from NYPD. They're not our stats, but we have seen an increase. But if you need more information about stats, I can connect you with our communications team.
Thank you so much, Ms. Baptiste. That was great. I love that you have several varieties of services for victims. And I just want to redirect this question to Ms. Angie Hanna, because I know that we do have outside services, right, when individuals are out and about. But I want to direct the question about how they can access help when they're inside the home with the perpetrator. So, Ms. Angie Hanna, how can an individual seek services while they're, yet still feel safe while they're with the perpetrator at home?
Yeah. So it definitely can be difficult, right? Because now there's been an increase in DV because they're always home with the perpetrator. One thing could be to track that perpetrator's schedule, right? When are they always outside, right? When do they choose to go for a walk, right? And communicate that with your therapist, like, oh, X so-and-so goes on a walk at 2 p.m. On Fridays. So then that means the session would be at 2 p.m. on Fridays. Another option could be talking to your therapist about texting, right? Maybe having the session where it's just via texting, right? And changing their number on your phone to something else, to, I don't know, to my friend, to my mom, and letting them know. Also make sure to let the therapist know that if someone calls you from this specific number and it seems out of the ordinary and it doesn't sound like it's me, make sure that there is like a safe word that you guys use, like, I like ice cream. So right away the therapist knows it's you and not the perpetrator that's actually making the phone call, right? Because of course the perpetrator is always going to grab the phone call and go through your phone and check to see who's mom, who's this, and who's that, and they're gonna call, right? So make sure to change their name on your phone. Let the therapist know also that if they call, to have a safe word. And also another thing is, while you're, say, on the phone with the therapist and the perpetrator walks into the house, one thing is also another safe word could be, I like apples. I like apples means that this person just walks into the house and I have to hang up, right? I like apples means that this person is now right in front of me and they're probably going to hear everything I say, so I have to hang up the phone, right? And so just working a plan with your therapist to figure out what can you both do to make sure that you're safe, right? If you want your therapist to turn into a case manager for that day, then by all means, right? The therapist will turn into a case manager, right? There's been incidents where the perpetrator will grab the phone, and then the therapist can turn into a case manager who's helping the person with a housing situation, right? Oh, I'm just helping them with Medicaid. I'm just helping them with housing, right? So working out a plan with your therapist and ensuring that you're safe. And I highly recommend safe words, whether it's ice cream, purple, apples. But yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Thank you. I think that those were great tips. I'm actually trying to like jot it down while you're talking. I think those are really, really great tips that we should all take down. If not, even if it's not for ourselves, but for a family member, a neighbor, there's always someone that's in need of help. I would like to direct my next question to Miss Nelsie Rodriguez, because we all know that, you know, there's a lot of individuals who think that, it's only women, like you mentioned, Ms. Hannah, earlier. So, Ms. Rodriguez, some individuals believe that sexual assault is only committed by a stranger. Can the victim be assaulted by her or his partner?
Thank you, everybody. I think we all gathered here with a common cause, and it's a privilege really to be here to share tips with people who do the same work in different aspects and different involvements. But I may have to do a disclaimer because I have a case that came in. So if I disappear suddenly, make sure that I can be contacted later if you have questions. I have additional information. But most men that commit sexual assault, getting back to the question. So the men that commit sexual assault in this event, I'm going to use men because it's the statistic that I have, do not know their victims. And that is a common myth that people have, is that those that commit sexual assault are complete strangers to the victims and they pick them at random. And this is how these things occur. Working in this field, you quickly learn, outside of statistics, is the cases that I see on a daily basis, is always someone close to the victim. 90% of child victims know their offender. And that's a staggering number, because we're not making a determination here of who our survivor is, right? So if our survivor is a child, oftentimes it's more than 50% of the time is a family member or someone close to the child. For people ages 12 and over, approximately 80% of the victims, of the survivors, know the perpetrator, know the person that assaulted them. So there is something known as a confidence rape. I'm sure some of the clinicians here know the term, but when it comes to a person building that trust and that bond, as Ms. Hannah mentioned earlier in her presentation, it's a matter of control and having that power over another person. So the best way to accomplish the facilitating assaulting someone is to have this type of connection with the survivor. So oftentimes this is how we see this pattern of behavior where the person kind of, some of you may know the term groom their person, the person that they're seeking to assault is oftentimes, or if not all the time, someone close to the survivor.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Rodriguez. I would like to address this next question to Assemblywoman Fernandez. Thank you so much for joining us and for being here and being one of our returning panelists. We always enjoy you. You have been a huge advocate against domestic violence. What is your vision in addressing this issue in our communities?
It's important to let it be known that you're not alone in these situations. Whether you're young or teens, go having their first relationships, or even people in marriage, 30 something years, there's certainly things that a lot of us can relate to. And I think we have to be a little more, and this might be hard to say, comfortable with talking about it and encouraging to those to seek help and to ask help, not when it's too late, but when you start feeling uneasy. And I tell young women about warning signs. like controlling language. Don't do this. Let me know what you're doing. I need to know that, these controlling tactics, I think are a precursor to an abusive relationship later. So I think, it's certainly important to let it be known of the warning signs. But then for those that are, in it and wed and in a home together with them, we have to make sure that help is available in all ways, and not just when a police report is made. Because I've heard that before, that, okay, we can help you get out the house after police report's made. After you report it, did you report it? And that's really important. Like, this person who is abusing you, committing a crime, a violent crime, we want to make sure that they're reported and, rightful punishment is given. But sometimes the fear takes over women and they can't bear, take that big step. So it's happened to me in this, position where I have women reaching out to me, just asking questions. I need help, but I don't want to call the police. I'm afraid. So letting it be known that you should seek the help before the, the attack to come, or until it's too late, is certainly steps to at least prepare you for, an exit later. And I tell young women too, like, I know it's because we all been there, our first love, always believing that this is meant to be, and they're the greatest thing for me at the time. And I tell it to my nieces too, like, sure, you're gonna have your boyfriends and you might feel, you know, it makes you happy, but at the same time, you have to realize when your happiness is being tested with these controlling tactics. So I worry for, those that feel that the answers are not in the home, because a lot of us we're fortunate to have family members that do look out for us, that do, try to catch these signs, that tell us, when things may be wrong, and some of us don't. So we we take in and accept, the attention given to us, even when it's negative. And I think that's something that has led women to make drastic decisions, to run away from home, to leave school, to I mean, there's been examples we saw in the news a month ago, not a month ago, I think it was last year, when we saw a video camera, security camera, of a girl being kidnapped right in front of her mother and taken into a car, and the whole world freaked out, like, oh my God, an abduction right before our eyes. We talk about this, but here it happened. And then we find out that it was her boyfriend that helped set it up to help her get away because home is too stressful. Her mother's too much in her life. And, that's dangerous conversation that is being told to her to make her believe that there's something better out there than your family. So, it's still an uncomfortable conversation. Even I feel bad, or awkward speaking about it, but we have to speak about it and really put pressure on those that commit these crimes to stop, get help, and know that we're going to seek your punishment, because it's like dictatorship in a way, tyranny of somebody trying to really control another person's life, and sometimes leading to violence to do so. And I think it's something that certainly needs a therapy on their part. But for us on the receiving end, for those on the receiving end of it, we certainly have the support system to help you get through it. And in the state, we've taken measures to try to address that. Victims of human trafficking, which a lot of the time human trafficking is young women and even boys that are lured away from their life to say that this is better for you. Come with me, do this and you'll get this. And I don't think they realize at that young age that they are trapped in a human trafficking circle. So to have these conversations early and to let them realize what's going on is helpful.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Assemblywoman Fernandez. I love the point that you made about our youth, because it's not only men and women, but our youth are dealing with DV and those type of issues. So I want to direct the next question to Ms. Heidi Benya. Heidi, how do we engage in conversation with young adults about healthy relationship?
Thank you so much. So in engaging our youth, I've said this a little bit before, but following that framework of listening, affirming, not shaming, and lastly, modeling. Those are ways in which we can engage our youth. So listening, just being present, listening and having those conversations, like Assemblywoman Fernandez said, part of our work is normalizing these conversations on healthy relationships and identifying abuse. So familiarizing ourselves with the language about abusive relationships and identifying and modeling our life after the self-love that Ms. Hannah had mentioned earlier, looking for those ways in which we can align ourselves with the path of self-love. And in those conversations where we are listening to our young ones, we are also participating in conversations about healthy relationships and affirming them. So making sure that we are saying, thank you for sharing this with me. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for providing your information. Thank you for allowing me to listen. Not thank you for listening to me, but thank you for allowing me to listen. Not shaming them, so not questioning our young folks about their experiences, not saying things like, well, why were you in that situation to begin with? And really creating that open platform for them to, without guilt, come forward about their experiences. And lastly, model. Model in your own behavior. A lot of our young ones form their ideas about relationships based off of the behaviors that they observe from a very young age. So whether we think it or not, or whether we believe it or not, our young ones are picking up on our conversations with our best friends, our conversations with colleagues, how we speak about other people. They build and model their relationships after the behavior that they are taking in. So talk about that. Talk about the time that you called someone a negative word and your relationship with that person. Talk about your relationship with different types of people. Talk about the relationships that you see while you're watching TV. Ask yourself and ask your young one, if they think that the relationship that they're watching on the Netflix or on Hulu or whatever platform on YouTube, ask them if they think that the relationship is a healthy one. Yeah. Is it a realistic one? And why or why not?
What a great point and advice to give for our young people. Thank you so much, Ms. Peña. I know that a lot of people suffer in silence, whether you're an adult or a child or a teenager. And so I would like to direct this next question to Ms. Curtis. Ms. Curtis, many sexually assaulted victims are suffering in silence. What advice would you give to support them? We can't hear you. I'm not sure what's happening.
The sound is cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Check your sound settings to see on the mic. In the meantime, Selena, you can continue. We'll come back to you.
I'll get back to you, Ms. Curtis, okay? All right. Thank you so much, Anthony, for your help. So I would like to, let's go back to Ms. Rodriguez. I know that many individuals from the LGBTQIA plus community also suffer from sexual assault and often don't report. Is there a reason why?
Thank you so much for that, Selena. So one point I wanted to make earlier when it comes to sexual assault in general is the component of not being consensual, right? So for sexual violence in the LGBT community, where there are already so many existing barriers to them as people to access resources and access services, is really disproportionate, right? So yes, both groups, if you consider yourself cisgender, heterosexual, same as LGBTQIA identified folks, there's stigma still around speaking about who did what to who, right? So if I identify as a as a lesbian and I'm gonna go into an ER and denounce that I was sexually assaulted by my same-sex partner, there is that risk of already all sexual assault survivors suffer from not being believed or validating what occurred to them. So there might be that question about, what do you mean you were raped by a woman? What do you mean you were assaulted by someone of your same sex? There's also the concerns about shining a negative light to an already marginalized group of folks, right? So you're not in the spot of privilege of being considered mainstream heterosexual or heteronormative conversations for folks. So that is one of the things that holds people back. Without a doubt, there are barriers to a person stating, I want to go through with this. And those are the conversations that we need to be having with folks, is providing the safety, their gender identity and their individual sexuality. It's not going to be questioned, right? Until we can start having those conversations, we will still have, in the medical setting, like my medical setting, where we have to constantly train providers into how to approach conversations with folks to create that safe space for people who are different, who should not feel that, for instance, a transgender woman, they cannot go into a shelter because her gender marker is different from the sex assigned at birth, and not providing those type of safeties for folks who have the same rights to having safety. There's a number of other components. A person may be still not comfortable telling people about their sexuality and feel that if they go through with reporting, they're going to be outed. And they will also face, as a community, more of a backlash if they come out. And it's known by anybody in their community that they went and reported sexual assault or sexual abuse by someone. Again, there are many survivors that will be reluctant to saying, you know, if I do get this service, will I be treated the same, or will people treat me differently, or would this provide another layer of discrimination that I have to face? We know already as a fact that people that survive sexual assault carry a great degree of shame and self-blame, and are not necessarily met where they're at when they're seeking assistance. So we have to work really diligently to not only for equality, but also diligently in educating and having these conversations, like Katie mentioned, with people based on their experience of the world, right? Not necessarily what we want for them, because of course, as providers, we all want to be able to provide this service to folks, but we have to understand their reality in order to service them. We cannot get people outside of their comfort. And like someone else was mentioning too, like there's not a police report, there's nothing we can do. When again, victimization occurs at the level of interactions with police when you are in these minorities. So there's got to be a sensitivity and a cultural competency element to removing those barriers and having these conversations with our survivors as to what they ideally, what they would want the outcome to be.
Thank you so much for that. I think that those are all valid points, especially in regards to our LGBT QIA plus community. Thank you so much for that, Ms. Rodriguez. While we wait for our next panelist, I want to address another question to Assemblywoman Fernandez. Assemblywoman Fernandez, what do you think the community can do to help address domestic violence?
I believe she's doing something else. It's okay.
No worries. No worries. Thank you so much. So, Ms. Curtis, if you're available, I would love to re-ask that question to you. Many sexual assaulted victims are suffering in silence. What advice would you give to support them?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yay.
Whew,
Thank you.
hooray, Zoom. Thank you so much for having me. I just have been working with survivors for about 5 years now. And I think that the concerns of survivors can vary so much. So if I had to say something to anyone who is suffering alone with this kind of violence, it would definitely be that you're not alone. There are so many resources and options for you within New York City. We have such an amazing group of panelists here that represent criminal justice system, mental health counseling, my own organization like Savvy that can support somebody in terms of mental health, but also advocacy needs. This kind of violence really robs someone of their power and their sense of self. And I think that that's really important to remember when we're talking about working with survivors of interpersonal, gender-based, power-based violence, especially sexual assault. It can be really isolating. It can be really damaging to somebody's self-esteem and confidence. You can feel really out of control. So the job of advocates like myself and those who work with me at Savvy is to re-empower that person. And part of that re-empowerment is to say that not only are you not alone, but you also have options in how you proceed. If you do not want to pursue criminal charges and you're interested in seeking mental health counseling, that's available. If you're interested in the criminal justice process, there's so many people there that can advocate Office of Victim Assistance and so on. Nothing will be forced on somebody that they don't want to do. And that is part of the re-empowerment process that sort of starts to undo the damage that this violence can have. So empowerment, voice, and choice are some of the key aspects that Savvy tries to represent to survivors. Laying out clearly expectations, managing the expectations of a survivor and making sure they know that the options they have, they're going to be informed about what those options mean for them, and then have support at every step of the way. So that is what I would like to share with survivors. Not only are you not alone, but there are so many capable people to support your decisions and to support your healing journey, because it's going to be individual to you. It's not going to look like anybody else. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Curtis. Valuable information. Thank you so much. Assemblywoman Fernandez, we would like to ask you another question, if that's okay. So what do you think the community can do to help address domestic violence?
Condemn it when you see it. Certainly, I mean, I don't want to say like shame, but condemn it. Support the victim. Believe them. You know, as a neighbor, as a friend, as a colleague, you know, like we said, open yourself to listening and just be there for the person. It's very hard to know what to do right away and what the person is comfortable with receiving, but let it be known that they have the space, the support, and your ear. And the information needs to be everywhere, like in public spaces, in libraries, and in schools. I mean, I know it's probably posted up somewhere, but the information needs to be there. You know, we need to let it be known if you have these concerns. If you know somebody, we have the contacts to help guide you out of it. And I mean, I'm having these conversations with some members in the community that do work in these organizations that help, to really see like where are the loopholes in some of the laws and the problems where people continue to get lost or you know, not have justice fully received, or that just prolongs the journey to justice. So I say it all the time, but we got to educate each other and make sure that we're all well aware and that this behavior is not normal. Like, unfortunately, it's common, but it should not be normal, and it should be stopped at all cost. And if that means speaking up, condemning, I think that's a strong first step to putting then the focus on the abuser and let them deal with that.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Fernandez. It kind of reminds me of that slogan, right? If you see something, say something. And I think that that's what we all need to do. Thank you so much for that. Thank you all for answering such valuable and resourceful questions for our community members, because I think that we all need to stick together, like you said, right? So that we can be able to help others in those times of need. There was a question in the chat, and I would love for Miss Angel Walters to answer this question, who is joining us from the Bronx DA office. Miss Walters, are you there? Okay, there she goes. And you can unmute yourself. So the question is, what is done when the abuser calls the police and the police does not investigate? What happened? What happens to the arrest of the victim?
So the question is, what happens when the victim calls the police and the police don't arrest?
Right. So if the victim feels like they're calling for themselves, but then the police may not believe them and they believe the abuser. What does the victim do? Or what can they do?
So in situations like that, I think that that survivor can definitely reach out to a victim advocacy organization, whether that is if they feel comfortable going to the precinct, like someone mentioned earlier, there's a DV advocate there, but also outside the precinct, there's a wealth of organizations that can potentially advocate on their behalf. So we also they can also call someone like us on my unit, the Crime Victim Assistance Unit. We have both DV advocates as well as if it's sexual violence related specifically, advocates like myself and Janike and Barrow. We work together within our sexual assault program directly within the DA's office. And we can potentially not only provide services to that survivor, but also, see what happens on the other side of things, maybe connect them with a CAS ADA. CAS is our Child Abuse and Sex Crimes Bureau. And, try to see if there's an investigation that is possible in their case. And then that ADA and can connect them to a detective, etc. So that may be something where it could be like a solution, and where they can get services as well as hopefully get the report taken as it should be.
Thank you so much, Ms. Walters. That is it for our questions. I would love to just thank every one of our panelists for such great resource and information that you provided today, from the tips, even if you weren't a panelist, for all of our participants joining us, we really appreciate you being here. And I just got so much information that I'm just excited to share with others. So thank you so much. And I will now pass it over to my partner, Anthony.
And thank you so much, Selena, for doing a great job in moderating this discussion on DV. I mean, if you see something, say something, guys. All right? Condemn it, as Assemblywoman Fernandez was saying. So I just want to thank everyone, our panelists and all our participants, for coming in today and really taking away a lot of this information that's very much valuable to everyone here. I was seeing in the chat, some people were saying that where was this information? And, I think this is just a wonderful discussion to have all the time, because a lot of people are suffering in silence. So without further ado, anyone who hasn't put their email in the chat box, please do so that you can participate in our raffle. Also, please take 2 minutes to fill out our poll that's going to come up in 2 seconds. If possible. Our poll should be coming up soon. And this is going to really give us some feedback on what to do for the next webinar. And as we wait for the poll to come up, we usually have customary checkout sessions so that people can actually express themselves. It's a safe space. If you aren't able to stay, that's fine. But if you do you want to check out and you want to have that conversation and have a space where you're able to express yourself, that would be great. But if not, we'll see you again on March 10th with a new topic. So please, I'm not sure if the poll's up, but if not, that'll be fine.
It's up. Co-host don't see it, but the poll is on, and participants and the audience is answering it. I see the results.
Yes. All right. So, and I really hope that, or we really hope that you all enjoyed this webinar today. Again, it was just great. It will really mean the world to us if you could really just go on Google or Yelp, leave us a review, because there are individuals and families out there who are truly suffering in silence. And with your review, people are able to actually seek great mental health services out there, or a safe space where they can come on and kind of express themselves instead of suffering in silence. Also, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and also LinkedIn, so like that you're always up to date with our upcoming events. So that would be great. And now we'll just go into our checkout session, where you're able to just share your feelings, emotions, comments, whatever it is that you're feeling right now. And I'll have our liaison, Cruz Fuchsman, lead us.
Y ahí vamos, y entramos ahí. Y,
All right, Cruz, you're on.
and when you let me in.
You're no longer
You're
in
good.
interpretation.
Okay, hi everyone. So nice to see everyone here today. So it's customary just for us to do a checkout. Just, check. We don't do it at the beginning, the check-in, because we go right into the program, but just how everybody's feeling, how you find the webinar, what can we do differently, what was helpful, and just anything before we just say good night. It's customary also to play a song at the very end, which we will be playing at the very end. So I will leave you, just listening to the song. Really very excited to be here. So if anybody would like to make any comment, we're here. We're very happy to hear you. Take it on, Anthony.
And I understand this was a very sensitive topic, and if you don't feel like sharing, that's okay. But if you
That's fine
do,
too.
just we have one already from
Miss Cullen.
yes.
Yes, from When Love Works.
When Love Works. That's
Yes.
beautiful. Let's go.
Yay.
Go ahead.
Thank you too. And I can't thank Selena enough, because you all are doing great work, and it's just refreshing to be a part of. Colin and I are here. Lisa's also on, another team member of ours at When Love Works. But it's so refreshing to see that this work is not being pushed under the cover, and just to hear the policy end of it from professionals in on the other side, and that we're still doing work to have a proactive lens, even though there are times that there's reactive when there are police involved. It's so refreshing to see that there's a whole team effort, and that all loops are closed and all of the information and resources are there. So I'm just so excited to be a part of this great work, and I can't wait to learn more. And we're here as a resource at all times.
Yeah. Assemblywoman.
Yes, I couldn't find the raise hand button, but I just wanted to say thank you again to NYPCC for always having the tough conversations and making it feel comfortable, and making, everybody feel seen and heard, because like I said, this is common, but it should not be normal. And I really appreciate the work that you do for bringing the information, the comfort, and the help to many needing people, parents, children alike, everyone. So I thank you again for this space. Thank you for allowing me to speak too, and to, addressing this issue with you. And let's keep fighting it, keep recognizing it, condemning it, supporting each other, and making sure we have the support systems in place. And I know that's my duty in the assembly.
Thank you.
Making sure that we have the support systems in place to help combat this and recover from it.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I wanted to thank you also, because you have really been on the front line of this subject. We have participated with you in other conversations, and more conversations are coming up. There's a project that you're working on that we are part of. So we want to thank you, and just wanted to know that we will always be there to support your work in your community.
Thank you so much. And I gotta hop off. So
go ahead, Assemblywoman. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
I know we have some folks out here. If you have any questions for some of the panelists here, we do have some of them on. So please don't be afraid to ask. This is a great moment in a safe space, circle of trust that we kind of build here for you to express yourselves.
And we just wanted to stay connected, with everyone. So I know that you share your emails, information. We do a lot of projects virtually and in person. We will be sharing that information with all of you, and invite you that if you wanted this conversation to continue, that we are here, to continue the conversation. Now we are flexible. We are on 24/7. You need a conversation on Thanksgiving, we will do that. So just let us know, and we will be there. So nobody have any comment?
Yeah, this was actually part 2 to an initial discussion that we had on narcissistic manipulation. So if you want a part 3, please
express that feedback.
No, and we'll come back on, because again, this is a conversation that needs to be had, And it's
Lizzie
just,
raised her hand. Lizzie wanted to speak.
go
Hi,
ahead.
Lizzie. You can mute yourself.
Hi. Hi. Lo voy a decir en español.
Sí, claro.
Esta información es muy importante y a mí me gustaría que esta información también estuviera disponible para mi comunidad hispana. Yo pertenezco a una comunidad de mujeres que realmente, aunque no lo dicen porque no se atreven, están viviendo algún tipo de violencia doméstica, pero es importante que sepan estos recursos en español. Muchas de estas mujeres todavía no hablan inglés y alguna de ellas habla todavía en lenguas indígenas. Fuera importante para mí también que ellas tuvieran esa oportunidad de saber esta información.
Ok, so Lizzie, ¿por qué no nos da tu correo electrónico? Lo escribe en la caja. Dame tu correo y tu teléfono. Nosotros vamos a llamarte y podemos planear algo. También podemos hasta hacer una colaboración. Nosotros podemos colaborar con otra agencia que provee servicio para mujeres indígenas y podemos hacerlo juntos. So, estamos de acuerdo y podemos ayudarte, ¿ok?
So you just want to like translate that for other folks that
Oh, I
didn't.
was saying that she's saying that
I also put it in the chat.
she worked with a group of women who speak Spanish and also indigenous language. So she would like to bring the same information to those women that she worked with. And I said that we can definitely collaborate with another organization that provide, services for indigenous women, and we can do it together in partnership. But she said that it's a lot of that stuff going on, a lot of domestic violence that is not spoken in the Latino, indigenous culture. So I told her that we will definitely can help her. So we can work in partnership with another organization. We can take it from there. I guess this is what we're here for, is to really to continue the conversation. So with that being said, thank you so much for being part of this presentation. All the panelists, thank you so much. And we really wish you an amazing evening and rest of the week. And now I'm going to have Jonathan to close with the song of the day, The Color of Love.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
I want to play you guys now the title cut off the new album. This is a feel-good song meant to bring people together, you know? So here we go. Colors of Love.